Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, class. We are from group 5 syntax from PBI 5C. Will presented about clauses 1. There are four persons in my group. The first one is Salsabila Inarotussofa. The second one is Mohamad Irfan Sahroni. The third is Likha Malikhatul Khusna, and the last one is Mutiara Farahdiva Anisa. Clause and sentence. Key technical terms such as clause and sentence have been used without any attempt of definition. It is also an appropriate point at which to discuss the central concept of main clause and subordinate clause. Without them, we cannot discuss in any insightful way the organization of clause into sentence, which make up effective written text. Each clause contains a finite verb. Finite verbs are traditionally said to be marked or tense, person, and number. Tense has to do with the speaker or written uses a part tense verb. For example, watching was listening, and place are given even in past time or a present tense verb. For example, is listening, and place the event in present time. Person has to do with an action is assigned to speaker. I am listening, first person. The hearer, you are listening, second person. Or someone other than the speaker and hearer. He or she is listening, third person. Number has to do whether the speaker or writer refers to one person. She is listening, singular, or more than one, they are listening, plural. In each clause, the finite verb is accompanied by its complements and adjunct. See chapter 1. Each clause is marked for accept, and the aspect can be changed. Compare Wickham with eloping with Lydia as opposite the Wickham eloped with Lydia. Each clause has mood. Mood has to do with two sets of distinction. First, there are the distinction between making statement. Wickham eloped with Lydia, asking question, did Wickham elope with Lydia? And issuing comment, eloped with Lydia. The second set of distinction has to do with the speaker or writer present as even as possible. He may have eloped with Lydia, or as necessary, he must have eloped with Lydia, or as a fact, he did elope with Lydia. Both allow certain change of syntax to reflect change of focus or emphasis. For example, never will Wickham elope with Lydia. Clause describes situation. The participants in them, for example, agents carrying out action on patient, as in Frank, agent persuade Jane patient to keep the secret. Both can be first contribute to a discourse, whether spoken or written. The central fact in the above list is that we recognize clause by which parts modify which verb. Clause in real text we will call text clauses. Clause in our analysis we will call system clause. Main and subordinate clauses. Writer, whether novelists or people writing personal letters to family and friends, put clauses together into sentence. Some sentence in text sentence corresponding to text clauses resemble the example in 1 in consisting of a single main clause, but many consist of several clauses, depending on what type of clauses are combined. Two types of multi-clause sentence are distinguished. Compound sentences of two or more clauses joined by conjunction. Examples are given in 2. Example: a Captain Benwick married Louisa Hayter and Captain Wentworth married Anna Elliot. B. Henry Crawford loved Fanny, but Fanny loved Edmund. C. Mr. Bingley became tired of Jane, or Mr. Darcy persuaded Mr. Bingley to go to London. Into A. The clauses Captain Benwick married Louisa Hayter and Captain Wentworth married Anne Elliot are conjoined by an. Into B. The clauses Harry Crawford loved Fanny and Fanny loved Edmund are conjoined by but. And into C. The clauses Mr. Bingley became tired of Jane and Mr. Darcy persuaded Mr. Bingley to go to the London are conjoined by or. Into A until C, the conjoined clauses are all main clauses, but subordinate clauses can be conjoined, as we will see after the following discussion of subordinate clause.
Complement clause. These clauses were traditionally called noun-clauses because they occur in slots in the main clause that can be occupied by ordinary noun phrases. Examples: Elizabeth regretted that she had met Wickham. Catherine feared that the Abbey was haunted. The contemporary label complement clause reflects the relationship between the clauses and the verb of the main clause. Elizabeth regretted and Catherine feared are incomplete pieces of syntax which require a modifier, either a noun phrase, as in the immediately preceding examples, or a clause. The complement clauses in the examples occur to the right of the verbs in the main clauses, but complement clauses also occur to the left of verbs. Examples: that Anne was in conversation with Mr. Elliot dismayed Captain Wentworth. There is one more property of complement clauses to be mentioned here. They can modify a noun. Example: Fanny was delighted by the idea that she could subscribe to a library. The sequence Fanny was delighted by the idea is a complete clause. The additional that she could subscribe to a library conveys the content of the idea. Relative clause. Relative clauses are called adjective clauses, reflecting the fact that adjectives also modify nouns. Examples: A. The cottage which Mrs. Dashwood accepted was rather small. B. The gentleman who saved Marianne was Willoughby. C. The book which Marianne was reading contained poems by Cowper. D. The building that we liked is in Thornton Lacey. In A, the relative clause which Mrs. Dashwood accepted modifies the noun cottage. In B, the relative clause who saved Marianne modifies the noun gentleman. In C, the relative clause which Marianne was reading modifies the noun book. And in D, the relative clause that we liked modifies the noun building. In certain circumstances, the WH word or that can be omitted, as in the building we liked is in Thornton Lacey with the relative clause we liked, or the book Marianne was reading contained poems by Cowper with the relative clause Marianne was reading.
Adverbial clauses. The name adverbial suggests that adverbial clauses modify verbs, but they modify whole clauses, as shown by the examples in A. The other key property is that they are adjuncts, since they are typically optional constituents in sentences. They are traditionally classified according to their meaning. For example, adverbial clauses of reason, time, concession, manner, or condition as illustrated below. A. Reason. Because Marianne loved Willoughby, she refused to believe that he had deserted her. B. Time. When Fanny returned, she found Tom Bertram very ill. C. Concession. Although Mr. Darcy disliked Mr. Bennet, he married Elizabeth. D. Manner. Henry changed his plans as the mood took him. And E. Condition. If Emma had left Hartfield, Mr. Woodhouse would have been unhappy. Complementizers and subordinating conjunctions. In grammars from before, say, 1965, the words introducing complement clauses and adverbial clauses were generally known as subordinating conjunctions, and words such as and or but were known as coordinating conjunctions. From the sentence, if Emma had left Hartfield, Mr. Woodhouse would have been unhappy. The adverbial clause of condition if Emma had left Hartfield cannot function as a sentence until the subordinating conjunction if is removed. Subordinating conjunctions introduce subordinate clauses. Since 1965 or so, the term complementizer has been used in one of the major theories of syntax, not just for subordinating conjunctions introducing complement clauses, but for all subordinating conjunctions. A problem is posed by the words that introduce relative clauses. Who, whom, and which are pronouns that also function as subordinating conjunctions. That they are pronouns is indicated by the who or whom distinction parallel to he or him and so on, and the contrast between who and which parallel to the contrast between he or she and it. Subordinate clauses can also be conjoined, as shown by the examples in 9. Example 9a contains two conditional clauses conjoined by and. 9b contains two relative clauses conjoined by but. 9a. If Henry Crawford loved Fanny, and if Fanny loved Edward, Henry Crawford was going to be disappointed. And 9b. It was Anne Elliot who loved Captain Wentworth, but who rejected his first proposal.
Okay, the next material is recognizing clauses. Rules of thumb for any given finite subordinate clause. A. Does it modify another clause? If it does, it is an adverbial clause. For example, in number 10, the clause in italics modifies the entire clause in the Roman type. It establishes a time for the entire situation of leaving the furniture behind and is an adverbial clause of time. Number 10. When we sell the house, we'll probably leave most of the furniture. B. Does it modify a verb? If it does, it is an verb or complement clause. For example, in number 11, The clause in italics modify the verb report. Indeed, the clause a motorist has reported is incomplete without the complement clause. Number 11. A motorist has reported that the road is blocked by snow at Sautra Hill. C. Does it modify a noun? If it does, it could be a relative clause or a complement clause. C1. Is the subordinate clause introduced by WH words such as who, which, where, or by a prepositional phrase such as in which? If it is a relative clause. For example, in number 12 and 13, the clauses in italics are relative clauses. Number 12. The brother ate all the food which we left on the kitchen table. Number 13. Show me the folder in which you stored the documents. C2. Is the subordinate clause introduced by that? If it is, it could be either a relative clause or a complement clause. If it is a relative clause, that can be replaced by which and so on. As in number 14, if it a complement clause, that cannot be replaced by a WH word as shown by number 15. Number 14. Relative clause. A. I like the book that you gave me. B. I like the book which you gave me. Number 15. Complement clause. A. We like the idea that the city center will be pedestrians. B. We like the idea which the city center will be pedestrians. Okay, the next material is final comment. In the above examples, the relative and complement clauses are introduced by that, who, and which. Relative and complement clauses often follow their head noun or verb directly, without a complementizer as in number 16. Number 16. A. I love the food they cook in the halls of residence. B. A motorist has reported the road is blocked at Sautra Hill. C. I'm delighted at the idea they might demolish the Appleton Tower. The lack of a complementizer does not affect the rules of thumb. Example 16b contains a verb complement clause. The road is blocked at Sautra Hills, which modifies reported. 16a contains a relative clause. They cook in the halls of residence, modifying food. And 16c contains a complement clause. They might demolish the Appleton Tower, modify the noun idea. Okay, that's all from our group. We hope you enjoy the video we made. Thanks for the attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.